All right, good morning or good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our KSB educational series. I'm Aaron Fox with KSB Community Wellness. So we have a great program again tonight. Tonight's program is how to prevent loss of strength as we age. So a couple of our physical therapists from our physical rehab department are presenting tonight. So Mike Sarno and Sean Miller. And no further ado, Sean will be up first. So Sean.
I'm Sean, one of the physical therapists at KSB. I started recently, just back at the end of June. I have Mike with me. He's off camera right now, but you'll see him just a little bit later. But I'm going to start our presentation off, and we're going to talk about how to prevent strength loss as we age. Here we go. So with any presentation, we have some objectives or things that we want to accomplish before it's all said and done. We want to discuss the benefits of exercising, so why are we going to exercise in the first place? We want to identify and recommend exercises and frequency, so how often you should do them. I think Mike's going to touch on that. We're going to discuss the 3 main areas of fitness, and then we're going to demonstrate a few examples of each area of fitness, and then finally, Mike's going to discuss some goals or how to write a good goal in order to progress your fitness. So to begin, what are the benefits of fitness? Mainly the ones you see on the screen. So we want to strengthen our bones so that way they stay strong, we have less fractures, and also strengthen our muscles so we can still do a lot of the things that we enjoy doing each and every day. We also want to improve our mental health and mood, so exercising will actually affect both those things, and it also makes you have improved sleep. So for those that don't sleep well, stay tuned. It also helps with weight management and reduces the risks of cardiovascular disease. It also helps us manage our blood sugar. So for those with type 2 diabetes, also something that I recommend is exercise. And then finally, it helps keep cognition sharp. So that way we're thinking clearly and we can get through our days without feeling that mental fatigue that hits us all. And then from here, Mike's gonna jump on over and he's gonna talk about the frequencies of exercise.
All right, good evening, everyone. So let's start off with the how often should we exercise. So this information comes from the American Heart Association along with the Mayo Clinic. For aerobic activity, you want to shoot for about 150 minutes per week. So that's roughly about 30 minutes a day for 5 days. Some of those activities, those can include a brisk walk, swimming, mowing the lawn. You can work out on one of the cardiovascular machines or biking. Along with that, you want to shoot for strength training about twice a week, working all of the major muscle groups. So once again, Sean, he's going to be going through some of the strengthening with you to get more of the specifics for that. So as far as that portion goes, about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That should help keep you pretty well in good shape. So let's first talk about cardiovascular exercise. So we need to talk about intensity. So this is a big thing as far as cardiovascular exercises go, because rather than just jumping on the machine and just kind of going, it's usually good to understand how much you can tolerate. And not just that, you also want to make sure that you're not doing too low of intensity as well. So as far as target heart rate goes, and then you also have something called the rate of perceived exertion. Those are the 2 ways to identify intensity. So we're going to first talk about target heart rate. So in order to calculate that, you take 220 minus your age, and that equals your maximum heart rate. So now to find your target heart rate, then you want to take your maximum heart rate and multiply that by whatever percentage that you want to be in. So for moderate exercise, that's 50 to 70%. And then for more vigorous activities, if you're in a little better shape, then you want to shoot for about 70 to 85%. So we are going to work more in the moderate category here. So let's go ahead and use this as an example. So if you're a 50-year-old adult performing moderate exercise, you want to take 220 minus 50. That gives us 170 for our maximum heart rate. So then if you take 170, multiply that by 50%, you get 85. 170 multiplied by 70%, that gives us 119. So a good range for moderate exercise would be between 85 and 119 beats per minute. So as long as you stay within that range, then that's your moderate exercise range. So next, let's talk about the Borg rate of perceived exertion. This is more of a subjective scale. So this will take a little bit harder, this will be a little bit harder to kind of calculate, only because it's based more on feel. So that is on a scale of in between 6 and 20. So 6 is no exertion. You're just sitting there. That's a very sedentary activity. And then 20 is maximal exertion. So this would be you know, like the hardest activity that you're doing. And moderate exercise or moderate exertion is somewhere in between 12 and 14. So that so like I said, that's a little bit more of a subjective rating, but you know, as long as you stay kind of within that, then that'll make a little bit more sense. So, but for people who are just beginning, usually the target heart rate is a much better form of the cardiovascular activity. So next, let's talk about technology as an aid. So we have some wearables. So they have things like the iWatch, and then like other smartwatches. You also have certain wrist devices, other chest straps, and then even the cardiovascular machine, they have sensors on those. So if you're having trouble understanding, or you know, if you have your target heart rate already set, sometimes the wearables then will help you kind of know and understand to keep you within that target range there that you want. So one of the big things though that you need to be concerned with is the accuracy of the device. So most of the watches are usually pretty well on point, but just kind of be careful for, you know, if you buy one of the less expensive models, just make sure that it's not off. So maybe kind of test it if you can. So, you know, if there's a sensor on one of the machines, then you can kind of gauge that against one of your wearables that you're wearing. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Sean. He's going to talk about strength training, and then I'll be back right after that, and then we'll discuss stretching, and we'll discuss goal writing as well.
Speaking of those wearable watches, I wear one, Mike wears one. We like to track our heart rate, making sure our workouts have been efficient. So talking about strength, you may see through various publications, you might read magazines, see things on the internet, but there are folks that are training for strength, some are training for endurance, some are training for power. So I think it's important to define what each one is. We'll start with strength. So strength is the ability of a muscle to exert force. That being said, though, that would be your body's ability to actually perform or move an object. And then when we want to talk about moving an object over time, we'll talk about endurance. So the ability of a muscle to continue to perform without fatigue. So now you're thinking about performing a task over and over and over. And then finally, muscular power is the ability or rate at which one can perform work. So when you think power, think like maybe a power lifter. So they usually lift a lot of weight, they do a lot of low repetitions, but I'll dig a little bit more into repetitions a little bit later on, a few slides down the road. So as we age, strength changes. That being said, I know it says loss of muscle strength, but actually our muscle strength peaks at the age of 30. And then it usually remains fairly consistent, as you can see, all the way up to about the age of 50. But as we get older, muscle strength starts to decrease over time. And that can be for a number of different reasons. It could be because our activity is decreased, we're not as active as we used to be. And that being said, that really impacts our muscle strength. Moreover, it impacts our muscle strength as well, or excuse me, muscle mass. So we start to lose muscle mass over time. As you can see, both the size, the number of the different fibers, it decreases by the age of 70, up to 33%. So a third of your muscle mass can be gone by the age of 70 if we don't do anything to maintain our strength. Most importantly, too, bone mass. We see a lot in physical therapy of those that have fractures. It's important to keep our bones strong. So bone loss peaks, or basically our bones will peak about 40, and then between 45 and 70, we start to notice that our bones become less and less dense, especially with decreased activity. So I have between the ages of 45, bone mass decreases by 25% in women, and then 15% in men. And let's think about that. There are hormonal changes with women, so you can see why 25% might be a higher number. That being said, when estrogen levels go down, our body's ability to utilize calcium, basically it takes calcium from our bones, making them weaker over time. So as you can see, that leads to a higher risk of osteoporosis as we age. So more benefits. So we talked a little bit about these originally. We talked about how, actually some of these are new. We talked about how to decrease your heart rate and blood pressure, which is important for those that are having cardiovascular concerns or want to maintain a healthy heart. It reduces our total body fat, which is important too. We don't want to be holding on to a lot of extra body fat. It reduces our need for our insulin needs and improves our blood glucose. So that being said, by expending more energy by working out, our body can better utilize that blood sugar, that glucose, and use it as energy, so that way we can perform work and be more efficient. It reduces inflammation, which is important. It also, when we talked about increases bone density, reduces our chance of osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is the precursor to osteoporosis. It decreases anxiety and depression. Now that's a big one too, if you think about it. So by working out, we're releasing these things called endorphins, and they're like feel-good hormones. They're telling our body that we feel good, and in turn, it's reducing our anxiety and reducing our depression in turn as well. And moreover too, like I was talking about initially, it helps with our thought process, and to reiterate, sleep. We can sleep better when we don't have a lot of anxiety or things that we worry about. Continued, more things. If you work out, if you're strong, if you keep your muscles strong, then you can perform your daily tasks much easier without any sort of issue. Activities you enjoy, playing with your kids, running marathons, whatever you choose to do for enjoyment, whatever you do for recreation, you can continue to do it if you maintain your strength. It also reduces our risk of falls and injuries. So as we get older and we become more brittle because we're not as active, we're more prone to or susceptible to fractures, especially if we fall. So falls really do hurt as we age. So it's important to maintain a certain degree of strength. It reduces our cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, and stroke. So once again, it helps our heart and makes sure that our blood's flowing. We keep our blood vessels clean. Everything is going to be great if you stay in exercise or work hard and exercise. And finally, it will increase and even maintain muscle mass. So we want to stop that whole muscle atrophy effect that occurs later in life. We can use up to a third of our muscle mass. We can prevent that by staying active, working out, and exercising. So something to note as well too, and I think it's important to focus on. We do, as physical therapists and those in the professional medical field, we want to make sure that you are staying active, but also within reason. So that being said, there are many benefits that we've talked about so far about physical activity, staying active, maintaining that strength. However, if you have cardiovascular complications or any other medical conditions, it's wise to reach out to somebody who's an expert before starting a major fitness routine. So for example, you can reach out to your primary care physician, physical therapists like Mike and myself, or other individuals that are a part of your medical team in order to decide what would be the best for you and what's a good place to start. So Mike talked about exertion, the Borg rate of perceived exertion. He also talked about total heart rate, total heart rate. Target heart rate, excuse me. I misspoke. And then, but I'm going to talk about utilizing the 1 rep max. Now, the 1 rep max is not something for everybody, because we'll define it first and foremost, so you'll see why. A 1 rep maximum is the greatest resistance that you can move, full range of motion. So you're going from here all the way out and back in with control and good posture. So no body English, nothing crazy. It has to look good. But that being said, it doesn't work for every single patient, not every single age range. So it is beneficial for those to assess their upper body strength, their lower body strength. And actually, to make things easier for you, I have a table a little bit later on, I think it's one slide after this, that goes through the different, for a bench press, it goes through the different ranges, so how much weight you can lift for your actual age range. And then I put the equation down there on the bottom as well too. So if you want to calculate your 1 rep max, the W is the weight, the R is the number of repetitions. Now that being said, if you don't want to do the math, it's late in the day, it's past 6 now, you can plug it into that link I have right there, which is a 1 rep max calculator, and it will do all the work for you. Now, once again, like I said, since this is not a one-size-fits-all methodology, the 1 rep max, below I also put down multiple repetitions. There's a 5 and even a 10 rep way. You can you can calculate your 1 rep max, and even up to 15 reps. But to note, these repetitions have to be done to a complete muscle failure. So if you're gonna perform any of these 1 rep max, 5 rep max, 10 rep max, make sure you have somebody supervising you so they can make sure that you're safe. And here's the tables. They're very small for me to see, but from what I can recall, I remember there was a 1 statistic here and 2 on the male side. If you're between 40 and 49, and you can bench press 1.2 times your body weight, you have superior muscle strength. So feel free to look through the chart on your own, and you can kind of see where you're at based on what body weight is and then how much weight you can move. A lot of these exercises too, you're going to see that I'm going to be talking about are pretty basic. But that being said, if you're starting out to work out and you're trying to build strength, you want to start with the basics. You want to build a foundation before you start doing the P90Xs out there, or the insanity, the other types of training that's out there. So what I'm recommending is, first, when you work out and you're working on strength, focus on multiple joints exercises. So that focus on many muscles at once. Some examples you can see in the pictures, we have a young lady doing a dumbbell bench press. She's also doing a shoulder press as well too. She's doing something we call goblet squats, where you hold the weight here and just squat down with it. And she's also doing lunges. And all of these exercises are hitting multiple muscle groups at the same time. That way, when you're working out, you get kind of the most bang for your buck. You're getting the most muscles while you're working out. But that being said, if you want to have more of a focused approach, after you work the many different joint muscles, the multiple joints, you can jump into the single joint exercises. So we have things like bicep curls, tricep extensions overhead. We have quadricep extensions, so things for lower body as well too. Even when we're working a lot of our core muscles, those stabilizers, everything in there such as planks, bridges, things of that nature. All of these things would be beneficial in building strength. So often a question that we hear in physical therapy is like, well, if I want to train for this, how many reps am I going to do? So I outlined it for you. I asked for strength and power, but really for strength, it's between 8 to 12 reps you should be aiming for most adults. But that changes if you're just a beginner, if you're just starting to get into working out, or if you're a little bit older. I prefer that you did a higher rep range and then really control your weight, so basically maybe a lower amount of weight. But we have 8 to 12 reps for most adults, 10 to 15 for most middle-aged or older adults, and then 2 to 4 sets. So you're doing 8 to 12 reps, 2 to 4 sets for a given exercise. And one thing, we're talking about strength endurance, so we know the difference. Strength between 8 and 12, endurance is much higher repetitions, usually the weight's lower, and you have to do less reps because we're trying to build the ability to do a lot of work over time. So you can do something repeatedly. And of course, being physical therapists, we always focus on the evidence. We want to make sure we're making recommendations that have been scientifically proven to be beneficial for folks and has years and years and articles and everything to support it. What I gave you as a table here is what they call the FIT. Basically, it stands for frequency, intensity, technique, or type and time, Ooh. But the frequency talks about how often you would do things like Mike was talking about previously. The intensity would follow really what that range would be for a 1 rep max, but it also can use target heart rate and other variables to measure that for yourself. Time doesn't really focus too much. There's not too much information on time, but type, it talks about whether you're building strength, working on endurance, or working on power. It has that all outlined there in one nice, easy to read table. And there's also stuff down there too where it talks about how often I should rest between different exercises or different reps. So there's that for your reference. And at that, I'm going to hand it back over to Mike, and he's going to talk a little bit about stretching and the benefits of stretching.
So, all right, thank you, Sean. So hopefully that was informative as far as the strengthening goes. So next we're going to talk about stretching. So as you saw, we discussed cardiovascular exercises for that health, and then we discussed some strengthening. Now we're going to get more into stretching. And so stretching is excellent for injury prevention and just generally feeling good. It helps to maintain the mobility of your joints. So I recommend stretching typically after any workout that you're doing, and it also doesn't have to be for terribly long either. So usually about 5 minutes of stretching will help, or you can stretch longer. It just kind of depends on how you're going. But with that regard, like I said, the benefits of stretching is it improves your overall performance, decreases risk of injury, like we discussed, increases range of motion of your joint, helps muscles work more efficiently, improves posture. So it does that by decreasing tightness in certain areas. It also helps to decrease stress, and it can help calm the mind as well. So kind of like what Sean discussed within the strengthening portion about how it kind of helps stabilize your mood. This does the same thing because it promotes relaxation. So now there are several different types of stretching. So there's ballistic stretching, dynamic, active, there's static, there's PNF. We're going to mostly focus on the static here today with this lecture. So as far as the duration goes, typically holding the stretch for about 30 seconds and then usually repeating it about 2 or 3 times, that usually gets us the best results. So, and then static stretching works best after a workout. So you either do your cardiovascular or you do your strength training and then allow a little bit of time at the end to make sure that you get some stretching just to help decrease soreness after the fact, or just to decrease pressure across your joints, all of the above. So important areas to stretch. So I just listed just some of the major muscle groups in there. So your gastrocnemius, that's a fancy way to say calf. Hamstrings, that's in the back of your leg. Quadricep in front of your leg. Piriformis, which is underneath your glutes or more like in your hips or trunk. Trunk, shoulder, and forearms. So here listed are major stretches here that we have. So the first stretch over in the upper left, that's your calf stretch. So calf back of the leg. Moving towards the right along the top row, that's your hamstring stretch. Once again, just a real basic stretch. Then you have your trunk stretch or good extension. That's good for posture. Over in the upper right, you have a good shoulder stretch. Bottom left, that's your piriformis stretch. That's for your hip. Moving once again towards the right, that's your quadricep stretch. Then you have your side stretch, which is another trunk stretch. And then I included a forearm stretch. That one's good for anybody that does office work that utilizes the computer a lot. That helps to decrease carpal tunnel syndrome and all of that. So, okay, so I outlined the importance of stretching. Let's talk about goal writing. So whenever you are starting a new exercise program, it can be intimidating, it can be frustrating. So usually what I recommend is to write a goal. So, it helps to hold yourself accountable. So let me start off by saying that there's an acronym to it. It's called SMARTER. So you'll see that right there on the screen. All this comes from a Michael Hyatt book called Your Best Year Ever. So that's the reference for it. So the SMARTER acronym, that stands for specific, measurable, actionable, risky, time-keyed, exciting, and relevant. So let's start at the top with specific. You want it to be clear and detailed, okay? Measurable, you have to have something quantifiable in it. So maybe that's time or percentage. So for instance, maybe that's like a number of time per week, or maybe that's like a time for a minute, or maybe you go like a percentage as far as working out within my target heart rate for a specific time. So actionable, you want to use some kind of verb for it, I will exercise, or I will participate in biking, something there like that. So you want it to be actionable. So some sort of a verb word there. And then risky is the next one. So basically what the author is saying here is don't afraid to be bold with your goals, don't afraid to stretch it out. So that doesn't mean like risky behavior or going in and trying to compete with some of the bodybuilders or something there like that. Not like risky that way, just meaning like if you need to set a slightly higher goal this way it's not too easy for you. That's what they mean by that. The T is time keyed, so that means set some sort of deadline, frequency, have some sort of time trigger set in there. So and then have it be exciting. So don't make it be like a boring goal. So like if you set a goal or some sort of like New Year kind of like New Year's goal, something there like that. Don't, try to have it be exciting or something just to work towards. And then relevant, so have it be relevant to your life. So don't make something that, once again, that won't like hold your interest or anything like that. So here's a good example of a good goal that I kind of use as an example. So I will participate in 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week for 1 month between 60 and 70% of my target heart rate. So as you can see, it has all of the aspects of the smarter. I'm going to go back a slide. So once again, it's specific. We can measure it because there is the time component to it. It is actionable because you're saying that you will want to exercise for it. Risky, so once again, rather than just saying for 1 week, I'm planning on doing it for a whole month there. So, and then that will lead us into time keyed as far as, because we have a specific goal there. It is exciting because we're planning on starting something new, that we want to get in shape. And so that's why that's a good goal. And then once again, relevant because we've made the dedication that we want to participate within exercise for this. So therefore it will be relevant to our lives there. So with that said, thank you very much. Good luck for those who do plan on either participating within your exercise program or if you're starting something new. So do we have any questions or comments? Okay. All right. Yes. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much for allowing us to take the time today.
All right. Well, yes. Thank you for everyone for joining us on Zoom, Facebook Live. If you have any questions, comments after the fact, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll make sure Mike and Sean get back to you. So again, thank you, Mike and Sean, and thanks everyone for joining us. Have a good night.